Hey there, everybody. Thank you for joining me for another one-man review. Today I have a book, Square Eyes by Anna Mills and Luke Jones, published by Jonathan Cape. I grabbed this book immediately as soon as I saw a comment from one of our subscribers, Domenico Ruppolo. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right, Domenico, but thank you so much for this recommendation. I searched it based on your recommendation, and as soon as I saw images from this book, I had to grab it. Visually, it plays with a lot of things that I'm really interested in, and then conceptually in the story, it plays with a lot of things that I'm interested in. So the story is a dystopian future sci-fi story with this main character, Finn, here, who has developed it's either a retinal implant or I believe it's actually a neural implant. It interfaces with your brain, and you can pull things out of your brain and put them into an augmented reality landscape. And it's just dealing with kind of the corporate consequences of people trying to steal her invention and use it for their own purposes, and also like how that technology upsets reality. So this is something I think about a lot in my own personal life, is heads-up display augmented reality, how that will change the world for positive and negative, mostly in my mind for the negative. And this book deals with that. But I've also always had a fascination. I guess I probably blame it on Chris Ware for getting me started on that. But with infographics as comics, and so there's a ton of that here. This vision of the world where, with heads-up display augmented reality, our vision would constantly be cluttered by infographics. And I also have always been very fascinated, and again, this comes from Chris Ware, I think, but then expanded beyond that into people like Edward Tufte's information graphic design. This idea of, I call it loosely linear connections between information. Each step is linear, but then you get a non-linear network of information, of visual and symbolic interrelationship. So this book has a lot of instances like that. The plot's pretty interesting, but it's mostly how they visualize it that really drives it home. You know, it's a pretty simple, like someone's invention got out of their hands, but then you have these beautiful, Jeff Darrow kind of intensely packed Where's Waldo type scenes. And then for me, it's really all of this ability to visualize this overlaid realities. I wonder sometimes when people talk about like intense daydreaming, if this isn't what it looks like, since I'm not able to do that, but where you're able to overlap intense visuals over top of your existing reality. I think that's why heads-up display augmented reality fascinated me at first. I felt like it was a way to bring the imaginary and the real together, but the more I think about it, the more it seems like in this book where it would wind up being a nightmare. But there's all these sequences where they have these overlays of people interacting with graphics. Here they're doing actual visual programming, so they're moving the pieces around physically. I love the color and lettering overlays. That's something I've been getting interested in a lot, like lately, playing with lettering that's a little bit hard to read because of the coloring, things like that. This is a really interesting sequence where, and this is something I really worry about with heads-up displays, is everyone's going to start living in their own world where they have their own different type of information mapped over things. And these are some goggles that would let you kind of break into other people's realities, what they're seeing. You could basically tune into their visual frequency and see how different people are mapping the world differently, and getting user readouts from them, how long they're online, how long they're got the goggles on. So it's a pretty good practical sci-fi in predicting like what this would probably be like and what some of the dangers of it are. And just again, really cool. I love data visualization as a component of comics, a mix of images and words that communicates information in a different way. There's a few people who have done stuff like this. Jonathan Hickman early on, not as much. Brian Wood, Chris Ware, the other three I think of that have done interesting stuff with this. But I think this book is probably one of the most intensely graphical representations in terms of pure data visualization. I'd like to see a lot more stuff like that. I wish I was good enough to do something like this in comics with design, so I really respect it. And I just love these overlaid images, and I love the idea because I've played with some virtual reality, and this is kind of the look that you get when you get too close to the boundary and it overlays, and that really unsettling view of reality I think is just really well represented here. Also, as the character has like memories overlapping, this confusion of past and present, that having this neural implant has unsettled their grasp of reality. I think there's just some really beautiful visuals. The regular, like, non-tricky pages are also really well done. You have just some really, really great background art, really great use of color. This page here, this sequence of pages, because everyone's in this augmented reality, they've been able to program a visual gap into reality. So I like that the characters, just their awareness, they show that there's a gap in their awareness. He walks back and then she shows up on the other side. So they're getting lost and then they become aware of the gap. I think that's really cool. And again, you can see that the coloring is really nice. Like no black line work anywhere. It's always like a dark, cool color. I guess you do get some black there. But the characters moving into the gutter, this whole sequence there where they're like now in the gutter, they're in the gap. Yeah, it's just really formally a really cool book. The story, like I said, pretty good, but I definitely think it's driven by the visuals. The rest of it's a compelling story. Here's another really cool sequence where two characters are seeing each other from opposite ends of like a public square, and then both of their visions are overlaid, like they can look at each other through each other's virtual realities is kind of the implication there. So I don't know, it's just a visually really entertaining book, and that supplements the story to the point where the story becomes extremely compelling as well. I think the story on its own is good enough, but it wouldn't work without the really compelling visuals, because it is so much about what that experience of a mixed up augmented reality could be, and kind of the nightmarish qualities. I think they could have leaned even further into the nightmarish qualities, like imagining that everyone has their own avatar and avatars could get hacked, and that real unsettling of reality where you don't know what anyone looks like and people could be hacking what you think you're presenting as. There's things like that fascinate me as well that could have shown up more. But for what it is, I think it covers most of the kind of potentials and problems very well. And like I said, introduces this infographics thing in a way that's not entirely new, but they're pushing it to a new level of design aesthetics that I really appreciate. So if you can find yourself a copy of this, I think it was published in 2016. It's an older book. But if you can find yourself a copy, I was able to get one pretty easy and pretty cheap. Definitely grab Square Eyes by Anna Mills and Luke Jones from Jonathan Cape. And thank you again, Domenico, so much for the recommendation on this. You totally 100% understand my tastes and understood that I would like this book. So much appreciated. Thanks for following along. Take it away, Jack.
You want to see all these books? Smash that subscribe button and the like button and the bell, and then you get them.